room. Today I have the distinct honor of interviewing Cricket Barrientos. She's the founder of Sounds of Autism, and today we're just going to hear her story and her leadership journey. So, Cricket, welcome. How are you today?
Thank you for having me. I am so excited to be here. Thank you. Yeah, I'm doing well. It's very warm in Arizona.
Isn't it always? So I've been asking a fun fact or fun question. What are you currently listening to? What kind of songs? What kind of playlist? What's your vibe right now?
Oh my gosh, you're going to laugh. Yacht rock.
I don't even know what that is.
You do, but you don't know.
Okay.
So it's like the Bee Gees and Christopher Cross and all the throwback songs, and they call it yacht rock. I don't know why. My husband says because it's like you're on a yacht and you're just floating away. So very calming. Totally goes with where I'm at in my life right now.
So we were just in an airport, and Air Supply came on. And I was delirious. It was like 4 a.m. And I just started singing with it. And my son is like, what is this? I've never heard this song. I've never heard this band before. Again, he's 22. Didn't expect him to know Air Supply, but it was kind of fun. So that's great.
You're right there.
Right there. I think I heard you said you're also a songwriter?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, that would be great. So my dad was a band director, and we grew up around music our whole lives. And at 2 years old, I would go to church and come home and by ear play the songs that I heard at church. So he was like,
on the
do
piano?
that again on the piano.
Okay.
Yeah, we all played piano. My family signed us up at 5 years old, all of my sisters and myself, and we did classic rock for many years, and then did a lot of competitions. We all played additional music throughout, and we also played in the choir, for the choir with our different instruments and stuff. So I've been around too. Oh God, no. I find people to sing for me because I can sing, but you wouldn't be happy.
Well, a lot of times with the whole being able to hear, play by ear, you would think sometimes that translates to also
it's like a golfer. Like I learned how to sing on my own, and now I have so many things to correct. And at my age, I'm just like, okay, you know what? Why go there? Just find somebody that can do this. And I feel like, honestly, like somebody should be singing my song that connects with it, and they should be translating it into what they are going through.
Yeah.
So I wrote my first song at 16. It was, we published it, and it was just like a boyfriend breakup song, crazy. But then when I became a mom of autism, I started focusing my attention on writing it, for the emotions that I was going through and kind of sharing. And I felt like music is universal, right? So I could bring it to anybody and they can translate it however they wanted to. But just the melody itself was very emotional. And so one of the songs is called My Baby Angel, and that's probably going to be the first release that we do.
Wow. So I can play the piano and sing. And I look back on my early years, junior high, even leading up to that. And I can remember just sitting at the piano and just allowing kind of the piano to speak the emotions that I was feeling, not really knowing that I was probably processing that way.
Yeah.
So I was so grateful that I had an outlet like that to just be able to dump what I was feeling into an instrument constructively. But I think I take that for granted sometimes, that creative outlet.
Yeah. Well, we became Sounds of Autism and Others at Risk due to a situation that occurred with somebody that worked for me many years ago. And he took his life, and he wrote me a suicide letter. And so I was the one that his mom gave me all the suicide letters to hand out. So it was really hard. It was a very difficult time. It was Super Bowl Sunday, 2019. So the halftime shows on. Adam Levine, one of my favorite artists, is on performing, and I get this call. And so this is when I decided that it wasn't just going to be about autism, but just mental health and everything, because there were so many just commonalities that were going on. So this letter he wrote to me, when I finally had the chance and opportunity to really read it, I said, I want to be by my piano when I do this. And I wrote a song within 5 minutes, and the words, everything was done. I had it played, the melody was going. And so I think one day that will be released. And the words in there I added were his suicide letter to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you take us to the beginning?
Yeah.
So how was this formed? How old is the organization?
So we've been around 15 years.
Okay.
Our mission is to safely integrate children and family of autism and others at risk now back into society through unconditional love and support. And our love is just what we want everybody to use as a reason to do this. And the support is, what is your role? Right? How can you support and what is your role in this? Where you always talk about leadership, I'm like, this is really to build leaders to be better at, performing. And so there was a day where I found a seed on a coffee cup, sesame seed, in one of my restaurants that I worked at. And I am so grossed out when I find this type of stuff. So I'm like, that is really gross. I just drank all this coffee and I had the sesame seeds stuck to the side of my glass. So I put it in to the dish room, and the next few days I kept finding seeds, but they kept getting bigger. Like instead of sesame seeds, it was like lemon seeds and then avocado seeds and all these things. And every time that happened, somebody came into my life and they had messages. And I was like, there's no way anybody's going to believe this. So if you go to my YouTube channel, under Sounds of Autism in quotes, you will see the story that talks about this whole seed thing. And I started sharing that. Well, then later, after I started Sounds of Autism, then I stopped finding seeds, and then I started finding money. And the money led me to...
what kind of money?
Like coins, dimes, pennies, like pennies from heaven. Yeah.
Okay, that's really funny because we actually have a running thing that I keep finding dimes. And this has been about a year now. Only dimes. I think I found one penny, but they've all been dimes. And I've actually started like a little
Collecting?
pile in my car. Only for the dimes that I find, or for the change that I find. And it's really weird that it's just dimes. I'm like, so every time I said, oh, God's dropping me dimes, I don't know what I'm holding them all to for, but...
So every one of them became a different significance, and the dates are what you should be focusing on, I think.
Okay.
I'm just telling you what I learned.
I'll go look.
But the dimes and the pennies, when somebody, like I had a lady walk in and she goes, I want to do a fundraiser for you. And I had just found a penny on the floor. And I said, what year were you born? And the year she was born was that penny. I had another lady that came in and goes, oh, I know nonprofits and I can open a bank account for you to start your nonprofit bank account. And I was like, what year? And hers was a quarter. And she told me the year that she was born, it was that. And I'm like, okay, it's absolutely crazy. But again, I recorded all this because I'm like, there's no way people are going to believe this. And then all of a sudden my team would come up and be like, I found a dime, I found a quarter, what does it mean? And I'm like, I don't read people, I just know this. But it was an amazing journey because I kept, like, if you believe in God and you know that he's here and he's around you always, if you pay attention to that, it's going to lead you, but you have to believe that. And so there's a lot of people that, as we're going through these traumas and mental health and autism and all that kind of stuff, I always ask, like, do you have faith in your life? Like, is that important to you? And if the answer is no, I never judge anybody and I never tell anybody we're not going to help you. It's just that I kind of plant that seed, like, this is what I chose to do to get through this. And so it might be something that, I encourage you to look at. And so, the music and the seeds and the money and all this kind of stuff, everything, it's always, even though we don't call ourselves a faith-based organization, we are faith-based. Like it is. It's just, it automatically goes there because we've seen the worst of the worst. We have a lot of trauma. We have a lot of stuff that goes on with individuals that are doing this journey. So
15 years ago, what was the catalyst for this? 15 years ago, what happened?
It was definitely, obviously the seeds and that kind of stuff. But my son was, he's 23 now, but he was going through a lot, and I was like, okay, he's going through a lot. I started journaling it. I started putting it out on social media. That's how I built my social media page, just sharing my story and having all these people like follow it. And they were liking, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I didn't realize how many people needed to hear these things. Right. And so
now, was it just your personal journey of
just
your
blogging?
son's diagnoses and like the things that were leading up to that?
Yeah.
And just documenting everything?
Documenting everything. And he was going through at that time, he started going through like all the transitions that kids go through starting at 9, 10, 11. And it all becomes very serious, you know, around 16, 15, 16. We're seeing a lot of change that goes on, a lot of mental health stuff that comes in play. And we started seeing a lot of kids taking their lives at that time. And it was like...
And a higher percentage with children with autism?
Just...
Or all,
especially autism, because of all the chemical changes that occur.
Okay.
So, you know, they will take shoestrings off and try choking themselves and taking themselves. It was just really bad. And I'm like, wow, it shouldn't be this hard. And then I remember I was in the middle of my restaurant world because I was in restaurants over 30 years and ran multiple restaurants. I was very busy. And I remember in the middle of my lunch rush, and I was in Scottsdale at the time, to this day, I remember one of my servers walks up and like, you have a phone call. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in the middle of lunch. I was like, I can't take a phone call right now. Is it, you know, emergency? And they said, it is an emergency. And it was another manager from another restaurant. He's like, one of my manager's wives wants to take her life. She is on the verge right now and they need help. Can you take the call? And I was like, absolutely. Wow. So I got on the call and I talked to the mom and I go, you know, I was told that, you know, you're having a rough day. And she said, yeah, my son has autism. I just don't see a positive journey. We're just really struggling. And I was like, okay, get a paper and a pencil. And I always learn through all the mental health training that I've been through is change the picture. Like when they're going down that road, find a way to like change the way they're thinking. And she was just in like a ball of they call it OODA loops. Like she just couldn't get out of it. And so I said, write down, I am important. My son needs me more now than he ever has. And this is not about you anymore. This is about your son. So you don't get to take your life. Like I was like, almost like shame on you, you know, because I knew if I had that approach that I wasn't empathizing with her and I didn't give her sympathy. I was telling her, you have to be empowered to do this. You have to do this job. And we talked for about 30 minutes and my entire team, they just must have known what was going on. And I had a 2-story restaurant, so we were busy and I'm the only manager on. So they're running around taking care of everything for me while I'm working with this mom and just telling her like, we have to do a job here. And so I gave her steps, like step 1, this, step 2, this, step 3. And the husband was sitting there with her. And he's like, oh my God, thank you so much. And she's like, Cricket, you know, you really saved my life. And I thought, okay, you know, like that wasn't hard at all for me, but I understood and I empathized with her because I understood what she was going through, but I wasn't going to allow it. Right. And this is before I ever experienced people taking their lives or anything like that. Now, my husband, I think, you know, is a police officer as well. He's been on Phoenix Police for 18 years. So when things don't go right for mental health, autism, whatever, we hear about it. Yeah. We hear about it daily. Yeah. And when he's coming home and telling me these horrific stories about families or coming home and saying, hey, I just responded to this call and this mom, all she needed was a little guidance, you know, I was like, we can do this together. We can, you know, so that's where the police part comes in and all the first responders come in is, you know, we call it calls for service with resolution. Like when that call comes in, the officer has trauma because they're dealing with this bad situation, the family has trauma, and even the 911 operator has trauma. So if we can find a resolution, so at the end, like my husband says, I always know the beginning and middle of the story, I never know the end. Right? Yeah. So if we can give them an end as a solution, maybe we will create some de-escalated situations. We'll minimize calls for service. We can de-escalate some of the PTSD our first responders are dealing with because they had an ending to the story. And that's really how this all came about. So I know we jumped years, but
no, I love that you basically lent her your strength. Yeah. You called out a strength in her that she didn't maybe know she had, or the reserves. And I love that not only did you, like, you've got it. I know you do. As a mom to a mom, you have that strength. Yeah. And then almost, you know, because sometimes in situations there is do you need a minute? Yeah. And then there are times where it's like, no. You need to lace up your boots and we're going. We're doing
this.
You're going to do this. And so that's amazing that you have that kind of discernment to know which one it is, but also lending your own strength. You know, like, I know it's hard. Yeah. I know it is, but we can do this together. Yeah. And so I love that imagery of how, I hate that happened, but so you start that's the catalyst for the organization starting.
Yeah.
And was it meant to always kind of go hand in hand with public safety, or did that come later?
It came later. That came, there was a situation that happened in the West Valley, and a kid was responded to, and it didn't go well. And I saw the scrutiny from the public, and I saw the scrutiny, with the police departments, and just all the first responders. And I sat down, and I call it troubleshooting, right? I sat down and I looked at the entire story, and I said, okay, this started with a 911 call of somebody who said, I have this awkward person in our park playing, and it looks like he might be on drugs. And I thought, okay, this is a very small community where this individual lived. How do we not know who this kid is? Like, that was step number one, right? So I'm like, okay, but then you think about it and you're like, well, our son, we bought a huge backyard so that he could play in the backyard. So a lot of our neighbors didn't know who he was either. So I was like, okay, so that's a huge issue. So then the officer who responded was a dad of autism, but his child was only like 5 or 6 years old. Like, he was young, and he was a drug enforcement officer as well. So when he walks up and the kid says, I'm stimming, which is something that, these individuals do with autism to calm themselves, he didn't understand what that was. And I'm like, stimming could have been the age-old fentanyl or some kind of drug or something. And so he didn't know. And so then, the kid went into fight, flight, freeze. He started running, and the officer, tackled him, and the kid was injured. And the officer, you could tell, like, as soon as he was on top of the kid and he asked him some more questions, you could tell through his voice changing, the officer's voice changing, he knew this kid had a disability. And then the aunt, who's babysitting this kid that probably didn't realize she wasn't supposed to have him out there by himself, runs across the street and is like, you need to get training. And I thought, we all need training. Like, if you look at this, it goes from the family probably not preparing their son exactly the way he needs to be prepared in case a situation like that happens. Like, if a police officer asks you a question or somebody, stop, put your hands out like this, and just say, I have autism, right? Or something. Just giving them the answer to the question, right? And then from there, the 911 call, like the community, making sure the community knows who your child is, bring him out. Don't be afraid to integrate into society. And that's why we say safely integrate, right? And then we talked about education. That child or kid at the time happened to be in my son's class. And so, I knew that he was being, he was going through the educational system the same way my son was. And my son wasn't missing certain things. So I was like, so there's a disconnect there. So we need to figure out what that is and how can we support that family in that educational platform. So that's where the education piece came in. And then with the first responders, it was, you could tell they felt bad. But when the family said, well, we just want you to apologize publicly or do this or do that, nobody wanted to say anything. And I said it became political, right? And so I'm like, we can fix all of this, but we need to want to do that. And so that police department actually has been our biggest cheerleader because of that. They reached out to us. We gave them suggestions, solutions. I'm not big on, I want to train you because I don't know their job. Right? I don't know. But what I can tell them is these are the things that you might come across being an officer or a first responder. And these are some of the de-escalation tools we can provide for you or suggestions that we can provide for you so that when those encounters occur the next time, right away you can say, do you have autism? Put it in, ask that as part of the question. When the 911 operator is taking the call, do you think that they could be on drugs or do you think they might be autistic? You could ask those questions and you start putting it in their mind because those two calls for service, the way we respond to them are going to be very different if it's he's on drugs versus he has autism.
Even though they could be presenting the same, then all of a sudden it goes two different. So it kind of came out of a need you saw. And so they were receptive. And then you've just been able to kind of hone that and then share that with other departments?
So in 2020, I became furloughed and I had worked since I was 15 in the restaurant industry. So I was like, okay, what am I going to do? Now that I have no job, right? And then they were like, well, and the government's going to pay you. Okay. So now I've been praying for time for so long. I'm like, this is your opportunity. I could either sit here and eat potato chips and watch CNN every day, or whatever, or I can actually do something. And so I started writing a PowerPoint, creating a PowerPoint that was prenatal till the end of life. How would we take this journey? And if I got to a point where my son wasn't old enough, I haven't been through it, I would call all my resources and ask them, tell me what's next. Like, what are we going to see? And so we started creating that. And then I started dividing it out. So now today we have 4 pillars. Sounds of Autism is one. The second pillar is unified responder community. So this is, I have 2, one's a former mayor, vice mayor and city council member. The other one is a city council member. They come on and they do all the knocking on the door of the mayor, city council, police chiefs, fire chiefs, resource centers, like just anybody that I call the influential leaders of each city. And they have 10 cities they're working on right now. And their job is just to say, do you know what we do? Do you have an adaptive environment? Are you willing to support us? And if the answer is yes to all of those things, we're going to work with you on transportation solutions. We're going to work with you on independent living solutions, workforce development. We're going to work with your educators. We're going to work with everybody on your platform to ensure that these solid leaders remain solid, right? Because change happens all the time.
Right.
And so we did the unified, and then we realized, okay, we're doing all this outreach, but now what do we do with that? So we started Just Ask Outreach, and that we decided to open that door to not just autism, mental behavioral health, but we work with 90-day STEP programs for incarcerated women and men. We work with senior citizens going through starting stages of dementia and their families. We're working with domestic violence victims, traffic victims, you name it, like anybody that needs to be empowered to go back into society.
So how can people find you if they wanted to get the resource? What can they do?
Resources, especially, yeah. So they can go to our website, www.soundsofautism.org, and there's a connect with us or connect button. And then once they go on there, it'll ask them a bunch of questions like, what is the purpose that you need? Is it an emergency? If it's an emergency situation, we respond within 24 to 48 hours. Okay. And it's also on QR codes. So like our first responders have them. And if they're responding to a call for service, they can ask the family to scan it, and it immediately goes to us, and then we'll respond to those families pretty quickly. Yeah. So depending on the situation, like if they want to volunteer, we don't respond as quick, but if it's an emergency, we are responding very quickly with those and doing what we need to do to get them the help they need. So
when was your son diagnosed?
He was, I saw the signs, but didn't know what I was looking at 2. But he was diagnosed out here in Arizona when we moved out here at 6 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, and he was nonverbal. And I say that because a lot of families don't realize that they can be verbal. But we had to sing a lot. And then from there, just start working on speech therapy and all the therapies that go along with it. The biggest question that families have, it was kind of like when we started our podcast today, we're like, where do we start with this? Because there's so much information. Families feel very overwhelmed about this. And so for us, the biggest thing is just letting them know, like, hey, we're going to meet you where you're at and let's get on that journey. And I always go back to say, did you also do these things? Because there's so many things that they could miss that could potentially, cause issue later in life. And especially, at the diagnosis stage, probably one of the most important. And then when they're 17 to 18 and they're becoming adults, making sure that they have the rights to their child after they become an 18-year-old legally. And so there's a lot of steps that go along with this. So we will be on that journey from prenatal till the end of life or until the family says, I'm good.
Wow. So if we have somebody listening right now that has a 2-3-year-old that are like, I don't know what I'm looking at, what advice or what are some tips that you would share?
I think the biggest thing, when we're having kids, we read this book called What to Expect When You're Expecting.
Do people still read that?
They still read it, or they Google, but I think they do because you get to see the little pictures of the little lima bean or whatever. Yeah. But what happens, and it happened to me too, is you stop looking at the milestones. Like you don't keep those milestone charts in front of you. And I'm like, take a picture, cut them out, whatever, put them on your refrigerator and pay attention to that. Because 9 times out of 10, the families will realize that they've been seeing those signs, but not realizing that those were the signs. And I can tell you when I was presenting with Catholic Charities, there was a preschool group. It was like 35, 40 families. And like 4 or 5 of them were crying through my presentation because they realized, oh my gosh, you're talking about my child right now. And so we got them diagnosed and we were able to help them. But preschool, preschool, that is like the most critical stage. And if we can catch them between 3 and 5 and get them the support they need, they will have the best resources.
So is that typically where a child is diagnosed?
We're hoping sometimes ADHD is your first diagnosis. And people aren't realizing that a lot of times the autism will exhibit after. Or sometimes the autism will happen and the ADHD. So when people say my child, well, I have one child with autism, one with ADHD, I'm like, do they both have autism? And I ask those things. And sometimes I even ask the parents, do you think you have autism? Because a lot of times they're delayed and now they're raising children that are delayed. And so they don't realize it until we have these conversations.
So it's the milestones. So if somebody's listening even today that they have a younger child and they're like, ooh, we are kind of missing some of these milestones, is that just something that they talk to their doctor, their pediatrician, and then you guys are here as like that other layer?
Yeah.
Is there support group? I mean, I'm not.
Yeah. So we have a couple of different things that we can do. But if somebody thinks that they're seeing something, like I have 3 children and one of them is not developing the same way, reach out to us. Because even if you're wrong, it's better to be wrong than to be wrong not doing it. Right. And now you don't know, or you just, you miss it. So with the milestones, if you're not seeing them, reach out under that soundsofautism.org, connect with us, and then we'll reach out to you immediately and we'll set up an appointment. Yes, we want your general practitioners or your pediatricians to be the ones that help you get that referral, but we can also refer. We work with organizations that, because we've had so many referrals, they're now allowing us to refer even though we don't have a medical background. And so we'll refer those families. There's no waiting list, because as soon as Sounds of Autism sent you, they'll put you on that list to get you in right away. And then once you get the diagnosis, there's multiple steps that are going to help you, but we'll work with them step by step. And then you asked another question and I totally forgot what it was. Sorry. You said the miles out.
Maybe you didn't hit it. Do you, if you just reach out to your pediatrician or to reach out to you, but it sounds like you do both.
Yeah,
or you can do both.
Yeah, we want to make sure that, that the families, a lot of times grandma and grandpa might see it first and they're like, how do I get my daughter and son to accept it? And I'm like, it's kind of like a mourning phase sometimes.
Well, and we've raised children, right? Yeah. If you're a grandparent, now you're seeing it other children for a second or third or fourth or fifth time. So it's a little bit easier, I think, because we have experience.
Yeah.
I say I'm not a grandparent, but.
No, but we're closer to
that.
Yeah.
Right,
so
right.
Agreed. Yeah. So I think when the grandparent sees it, a lot of times they'll call us for advice on how do I approach my daughter or my son with this. And I tell them, go on my, we have a YouTube digital library. So this digital library is a place that it's kind of like TED Talks, but it's called Spectrum Talks and Tips. And this is everything from prenatal till the end of life. These digital videos, whether it's 2 minutes or 2 hours, it will give you insight into what's happening. And most families that watch it, even 2 or 3 of the videos, they're like, oh shoot, I'm going through it. Yeah. So very emotional, very, it's hard. This is hard. And that's why I chose to do what I do. I gave up restaurants. After 30 years, I retired and said, I need to do this. Like, this is my mission. And I feel like there's so much that needs to be done. And since I've been on this journey for 23 years, there's a lot of things that haven't improved or changed. And it's just very frustrating to me. And I'm like, we can fix this, but we all need to do this together.
So it sounds like you were a leader in the restaurant business, in the organization, and now you're taking those leadership skills. Are they translating? Whether it's starting it from scratch, the paperwork, the running are you seeing some of the leadership skill sets translate?
Michelle, when I first started this and really got into it, my husband and I self-funded because we wanted to make sure that our program was sustainable. So we did that for probably 9 years. Wow. Then we started raising funds, which that's in itself, it's a journey.
It's difficult. Yeah.
But when I started doing this with the nonprofit world, I was like, oh my gosh, it's somewhat competitive. People are afraid because of funding, right? And I was like, guys, we need to work together. Like, this is our biggest thing. That's why we say we're unified, because we work with everybody, anybody that wants to work with us. And then on top of that, I was like, I don't get this. So I had to take my restaurant mind and apply it to what I'm doing now. And so that's why I have 4 pillars. It's like my hostess, my server, my bartender, right? And just how do you pull all that together to make it work? And when I came up with that idea and I went into that approach, my mind totally got it. And I was like, I can do all of this and it's easier to manage. So you asked, this is the question I forgot. You asked, do you do this on your own? No. I have executive directors for each one of my pillars.
Okay.
I gave up my title. I don't want titles. Like, I wanted to work in the trenches with these individuals and I wanted to continue showing the abilities that they had and how we could utilize them, because this is an untapped genius level pipeline that people are unaware of and they fear because they don't understand. And we're going to really open those doors with Agua Fria High School District this year. You're going to see some of the things that we're doing to bring awareness to this community, this population, as well as all these other populations that we're serving, and showing how easy it is when you embrace them, how easy it is to put them into your world, and they'll probably be some of your best employees, long-term employees. And a lot of times you're going to see them create things that you never imagined. And so those are, we call it a hidden talents. This will be something that we bring out. And then with our first responders this year, something that we're going to focus on big time is getting our first responders healthy. Because I didn't know this until getting into the 18th year of my husband's career, that many of our first responders go through some very cumulative PTSD. And I'm like, how can we ask our first responders to do their job every day successfully with a very unique population like autism when they're going through behavioral issues or mental health issues, and respond in a way where they have compassion and empathy? It's hard because they're going through their own traumas. And so when you put two traumatic situations together, it's not a good, healthy relationship. And so we're going to focus a lot on bringing some scholarships to that population to get some help, and really do some advocacy for preventative PTSD, or ways to overcome it before they get to their 15, 18 years in the career. We feel it's very important. So that's why I had to put executive directors for each of these programs, is because each one is so important that I couldn't just say, okay, well, I'm going to divide my time, and I need to just see in the trenches, because we're having successes with our students and we're really taking them to a whole different level. And I just don't want to lose that. So I think my role is more important doing that.
This is a really heavy work that you do, and it's heavy carrying somebody's mental health and all those things. So how, as a leader, do you take care of you and make sure you don't burn out, to make sure that you reach all the families that you need to, or serve the executive directors, or serve the population? What are some skills or some tools or some advice you'd give, or that you're doing yourself to take care of you?
I've known you a long time, and you don't realize I've known you a long time, but I've known you a long time, not just with my sister. I know you guys have a great relationship and your kids grew up together, but you've had a great reputation in the West Valley about, working with leaders of all different levels, and they all just say so many wonderful things. I see it all over social media. And I'm like, you are also faith-based. Like you're a faith driven woman. And when we started going through a lot of this, there's many times on this journey with autism, and also my husband being an officer, and the PTSD stuff that we see, to kind of give up, or to kind of stop walking in your faith and doing those things. And we did that for a couple of years. We were angry. And recently, all of our kids started going to different churches and Christian churches, and they were all coming back with these positive stories. And I sat with my husband one day. We were in our spa, and I said, honey, our kids are outdoing us right now when it comes to Christianity. I go, we are so lost right now. I think we need to get back into it. So we actually started going out to Buckeye CCV, and we're seeing a difference. And it's our reset button every week. We don't miss it. We're excited to go. We can't, if we have to miss it, we watch it on TV. Yeah. Like, I feel like, I always say counsel the counselor. Yeah. My wins with these students, and, just watching them blossom is rewarding to me. And it's my therapy. But even bigger than that is, we could not do this if we were not believing in faith. And I think that's a big part of our lives now. So, that's it, and I find people all day that, they're struggling, and all I say is, there's something there's something there for you. You just may not know. And, I think that, that's my story.
And I appreciate that people are finally talking about it. So your husband in public safety for 18 years, my husband's been in there over 20. And when they first got in, it just wasn't something you did.
Yeah.
And so there's been some different acts at legislation that have given some services to offer them. But I feel like just it's a part of the conversation now, where they get hired, and where they get onboarded is just this focus on mental health and to take care of you and make sure put on the oxygen mask first. And so I appreciate just even the approach and just the being able to have, a conversation with the person next to you and just say, hey, that one was really rough. Where again, I think you had to kind of bottle it down before. And so my concern really is for the ones that have been on for like that 15 to 25 years where it wasn't quite part of the process in the beginning and maybe they haven't adapted. So it's good that they're just talking about it.
Yeah.
Whether it's in your organization or in these departments, it's just so important to just talk it alone. You're not alone. When you start talking about it, you realize, oh, I'm not alone. And I think that's part of the mental stumbling block right away is you think there's something wrong with me. This is only happening to me. And you get it where you think it's just you. And if you get isolated, I think there's such a danger.
Yeah.
And even as leaders, when we get so isolated and we are only listening to ourselves, it really is a lesson for everybody. You don't do life alone.
Yeah. It's true. I walked in the backyard one day when I had been at wit's end. My husband's going through what he's going through. My son's going through what he's going through. And I'm just like, God, what is happening here? And I was just finally like, okay, I have to just put it in his hands and allow him to guide me. And from that day on, it's just been amazing. Like I have no fear. I have no frustrations. I am so excited to be a part of what's happening here. But I also know that it's not me. Like I'm just here to help, guide that lead. And I think, going back to the mental health side of it, everything my son has gone through for the last 23 years to prepare to be independent and go through, integration safely and all those kind of things. I'm now watching officers and firefighters have to learn how to breathe. And my son is one of the best teachers because he's like, I've already done this. Like, this is work that's easy. And they're struggling. And to watch him, who probably people just didn't believe he had that knowledge or that ability to be the leader, to teach others is amazing to me. Like,
we just started adding breathing to just our own personal lives.
Yep.
It was in January, actually, we had a speaker come to our public safety day and just talk about how much breathing can help and just reset the body and reset the mind and focus. And so we got a hold of that person later and we're like, where do we learn it?
Yes.
Which is so weird to go, how do I learn how to breathe? So there's an app and we download the app and it's part of our like bedtime routine now is we've put that in to just kind of recirculate, whatever it is, regulate. That's the word I'm thinking of. It just regulate the mind and the body to go back to bed.
And
so
Michelle,
you get a good sleep.
That information is so important. And the hardest thing for people is realizing they need it. And then what do I do when I need it? And so,
because it sounds so silly.
I know. And I think that for us, it's just building that journey map for people so that they don't have to worry about, like, people hate making mistakes, right? Or failing. And to be able to say, listen, these are all the different steps that you can take. You get to choose how you want your journey to go. But this is stuff, don't forget about it because it's important pieces. I think it's important for anything mental health, right? And so we all really are at risk. And that's, kind of what we learned. And so, I think the organization today is way different than the vision I had at, 15 years ago. But again, I think I had to grow myself to be able to see what was needed next.
So on that, what would Cricket now tell yourself 10 to 15 years ago?
Don't do it. Oh my gosh. No, I honestly, maybe I wasn't able to tell, I wouldn't be able to tell that person because I don't know if that person would have listened. You know what I mean? Like, I think as I got older and more wise, my leadership skills grew. And
It's
going
true.
back, I mean, I was in restaurants 30 years. I knew a lot about it. But today, looking back, things that I learned on this journey, I would go back and totally change there as well. So I think part of that later, because I look at my kids, I know you have kids very similar to my age, or to my kid's age. It's hard to tell them right now. And sometimes you're like, just listen to me because I don't want you to go through. And I don't realize, like, I just need to be patient. And sometimes I have to let them fall to get back up and do it again. But that we're here when you're ready, that type of thing. So yeah, I think that would be it. Just fail and accept it and then build on that, and I think it's probably one of the hardest things to tell people it's okay to fail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are you the most hopeful about as you're looking ahead in your journey with the organization or even your own leadership?
Yeah, I think for sure I'll do this the rest of my life. I don't see myself ever changing that. And if I do decide that I want to retire one day, I have so many leaders under my belt now that are all on the autism spectrum that could potentially work together to continue this. I think the biggest thing right now that needs to change immediately is we have to come up with solutions for the largest population of autism, which is those that are too high function to receive any kind of benefits, because that's going to be our highest level of homeless, jobless. You'll see fentanyl overdoses, you'll see human trafficking, all of the negative stuff that we're seeing in this world. They're the most vulnerable, and they will be the ones because they remain 19 the rest of their lives if they don't continue. And if you ask me, Cricket, how large is that population? It is large. And Arizona does such a great job helping support those individuals, but there's not enough money for everybody. And so we have to teach them at a very, very young age. Like, I'm talking elementary school. We have to start preparing them for that adult life. And then we have to have jobs ready for them. And we have to find communities that would be willing to hire them and help them. Otherwise, our homeless is going to be really bad. And 2020, we lost 2 homeless individuals that parents just gave up, said, you're out. And both 18 years old and died of fentanyl overdose and found them in the West Valley. And so I refuse to allow that to happen without trying. So, yeah.
So high functioning, do they just stop? I guess I'm just really naive to this world. So they receive some services until they're 18, or like, how does that work?
So if they were diagnosed, let's say from 3 to 5, the government will help. Right? They'll help because they have these tendencies. So it'll be a lot of therapy, speech therapy, occupational, physical, whatever. They get into kindergarten or preschool, and then the schools take over.
Okay.
And they can go all the way up to 22 years old.
Okay.
But then when they graduate, if we don't have a succession plan after that, and parents are divorced, or dad took on because mom walked away from the situation, or grandma and grandpa are raising these kids because mom and dad can't do it anymore, whatever the reason, their brains stop developing because they're not getting jobs. They're not out in society. They're sitting at home on a couch, and they're happy and content as can be. And many of these individuals don't care if they have friends. They don't care if they have. So what happened to us all mentally in COVID is their day every day. And so where does that end up? Well,
so like 22-ish is where services potentially stop. And then it's just up to the families to kind of figure out
where they're going to go, what they're going to do.
Next. Okay.
And if you ask any family, at 16, 18, that was kind of a tough time for us. But when they get to 22, all you think about is what's going to happen when I'm not here. And if your plan is the siblings are going to take over, or I highly recommend that not being the succession plan, because, we know sometimes the siblings aren't the right answer, or maybe my sister or my other sister, but we're all at the same age. Like, how is that going to happen? And so if we don't financially plan, the solutions that are out there, unless they're very low function or a low function mentality, I mean, there's 80,000 kids on a waiting list to get into housing. We're never going to, and that's based on diagnosis. I mean, there's a lot of people undiagnosed. There's never going to be, a solid plan for these individuals. And a lot of times the parents will say, I'll leave my house, it's paid off, they can live there, and then they leave it up to the neighbors to take over. Well, oh, believe me, girl, I've seen it all. And it's not good. The plan is not good.
So it's succession planning, but for a person instead of an organization.
Yep.
Like leaders would maybe look at. Wow.
So that's why I brought in these policymakers, is to come in and say, this is what we have. This is what we're facing. Can you help us figure out solutions? And I feel like we have such good leaders out here. If we all came into a room and we said, listen, you have no money, you need transportation, and this is what we could figure out a million ideas, but we have to do that together. And everybody needs to know that there's a need, and not everybody knows that.
Right.
Yeah. It's scary. It's the largest diagnosis in the United States, and we are in trouble.
So have you been successful on any policy? I mean, are you working with the departments when we talked about that? So is there an arm to this that's working on legislation as well? Or
so our Unified Responder Community Initiative is all about policies and just figuring out what's happening. The state at one point was trying to pass a law for underage vaping because we're having the fentanyl issues. I don't know if they have passed it yet, but they were going to go to 20 years old, 21. They had to be 21 to purchase a vape. And a lot of the policies within the cities, their ordinance stated 18. So
Jamie Aldama, federal at the time.
Yes. So Jamie Aldama has been out there. We call it Escape the Vape. It's one of our initiatives. And he was out there legislating for vaping to be 21, but not just in the state, but also in each individual city, so that if somebody were to sell to an underage individual, that they would be fined for the city ordinance and the state ordinance. So with those two things, they get double whammy. So we're working on these things, and this will continue for the lifetime of Sounds of Autism.
Well, I know Arizona's been really strong proponents of working with large industries that are coming to Arizona. So Arizona, for those are listening outside of Arizona, has become one of the next big tech hubs. And so we have Intel and TSMC and Lucid Motors and other organizations that have come here. And I know the schools have done a fantastic job of saying, okay, what does your pipeline look like?
Yes.
And so it almost seems like it should be part of that same conversation of, well, what do you need? And how can we even from, students with autism take some of these all the way up? And so I'm just wondering if that conversation's being had. I hope it is. I would kind of think that it's at least being brought up. I trust the leaders that I know that are probably sitting at some of these tables, but it almost has to start there. Like, what could that ecosystem and how do they fit in, there?
I think a lot of our educational leaders, we have had the opportunity to share with them some of the concerns that we have, and they're listening.
Yeah.
And I see every year it gets better. So I believe that it will continue. As the more we push, the more they will listen. I believe that. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Well, any closing or final thoughts you have for either families that are listening or leaders that are, this is emotional nonprofit work, and it's got its own, nonprofit work has its own kind of leadership to it. A lot of the skill sets translate, but it's a little bit more people heavy usually. And so if there's another founder, executive that's listening, or even employee, what advice, I guess, would you give to others that are working in the nonprofit sector? Might be tired, that might be a little bit worn out, or questioning, like, maybe I should go back to the other job, because I think that's always
I think anything,
the decision on the table.
I think families, I would tell them, you're not alone. We're here to support you. I think community is become very open-minded, because this is an untapped population that could probably make you very successful if you allow them to. First responders, you're not alone. We're here to support you. And our educational leaders, like, don't be afraid. Start implementing these ideas for life, job safety, socialization skills at an elementary level, and start preparing these students to work for you or work for somebody you know, and start introducing that at a very early age. So by the time they graduate high school, they are the best at whatever it is they're supposed to be doing, so that we don't worry about their futures. Yeah.
You know, I think people sometimes can burn out by either overextending or losing sight of the mission. Or, you know, we were kind of talking about that this weekend. We were with a bunch of coaches this weekend that pour out all the time. And sometimes we spiral a little bit, I think, when we're striving, which means you probably have lost who you are, or you've lost what you're working on, the why.
Yeah.
And so I think for anybody that's listening, if you're kind of feeling like you're spiraling, either have you kind of come out of who you thought you were, are you trying to be somebody you're not?
Yeah.
Or are you striving to do too much that nobody asked you to do?
Yeah.
Or have you lost sight of the mission of why you're doing it? Because I think there's a lot of reasons that start to come in. Well, I need the paycheck, or, you know, it started out good intentioned, but then it's so, I think that's probably even good for the person that's doing the work.
Yeah. Agreed.
So how you can, because we need people that are, you know, in nonprofits, we need the people in cities, we need them all. And so our goal is to keep everybody leading where they are, strong and whole, so that the organizations are healthy and whole. So I appreciate the work that you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I know it's so crazy. We've been running in so many circles for so long, and it's just so interesting how, like, we're just now starting to talk the last couple of years, even though we've been running in the same circles for like 10 to 15. So it's funny to me that that's how it works sometimes.
Yeah, it was the right timing.
It was the right timing. Thank you. Thank you for what you do and what you're doing for our state and beyond. I'm sure this is probably just becoming a model, and people are going to start looking.
Thank you.
What you're doing.
Thank you.
So keep it up, and thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.